Well, good afternoon. Hi. My name is Ruben Young. I'm the head of Amplify. Delighted to welcome you all here this afternoon. The room has cooled down a little bit, which I'm pleased to see. It was very, very hot before the last session, and what a morning and early afternoon it's been. You guys are in for a treat. This is going to be an exceptional presentation. We've just come from Melbourne last week, where Mark Sagar presented to the audience there, and just terrific what he has to say. So I won't ruin his surprise, but there's a lot of great content to follow. Now, you see on screen, of course, we have a hashtag for Amplify this year, which is Amplify 2017. We encourage you to share your thoughts, your views, your questions through Twitter. Get involved. There is a Wi-Fi network in this room, which you can access. The details are on the screen. And in addition, we have a partnership with the Australian Financial Review this year for Amplify, and you're welcome to use the open subscription to afr.com using the Wi-Fi and the prompts. So that's available to everybody in the session. So this session is sponsored by Infosys, and Infosys has been a partner of Amplify since 2007. So the early days of Amplify. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Rohit Pathak. Rohit is an Associate Vice President of Infosys and is their Client Relationship Manager here at AMP. And Rohit is going to introduce this session and our next speaker. So please join me in welcoming Rohit.
Thanks, Ruben. Good afternoon, all. It is my privilege to introduce Mark Sagar. And this introduction could be very long, but I'll make it sharp and sweet. Mark is the director of the Lab for Animate Technologies at Auckland University. He's also a pioneer in defining the next generation of human-computer interaction and facial animation. Now, he's been involved with the creation of the digital characters in movies such as Avatar, King Kong, and Spider-Man 2. And his work in computer-generated faces was recognized with Oscars at the 2010 and the 2011 Sci-Fi Awards, which is a branch of the Academy Awards that recognizes movie science and technical achievements. So we have a celebrity amongst us. Mark is also a former medical researcher, and he started his career building computer simulations of the human eye for virtual surgery. He has a Bachelor of Science and a PhD in Engineering from the University of Auckland. Associate Professor Sagar is also a recipient of the University of Auckland's 2012 Distinguished Alumni Award. So please welcome Mark Sagar.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to talk to you about pretty much putting a face on artificial intelligence. How do we humanize computing? How do we make computers more human, but also make it basically more intuitive to use computers? And so why would you want to do that? It's because it's all about feedback. The face is all about feedback. When we have a face-to-face conversation, if you think about how communication can escalate. If I want to text message somebody, if I don't really need an answer straight away. But if I want things straight away, or if something's getting a bit more complicated, I'll pick up the telephone. But if things really matter, I'll have a face-to-face meeting because I want to know the full intent of the person, and there may be all kinds of things which have to be navigated through a conversation. So if you think about how do we deal with complex systems, and this is where we're going. We've got so much different technology happening. You either have to deal with this, or you can pretty much have a conversation with the pilot. So this is a natural way for us to basically traverse through the complex networks of possibility of dealing with complex systems. Now, the other thing about the face is that learning is also all about feedback. So if you're making artificially intelligent models, one of the theories of mind is that actually mind requires a body as well as a brain, because we interact with the world. So we'll do something, we'll notice the effect, and this is sensory motor learning. And to give things real meaning, you can have ontologies which are abstract, but when we think of something that's meaningful, we really look at basically what is it grounded in? And it's often how do we relate that to our own personal experience? So how do we actually build machines which actually have an experience of things? And then most importantly, you've got social learning. Most of what we learn is from other people's brains. Basically, we interact with people all the time. How do we make machines that you can just teach in a natural way and they can teach you in a natural way? So that's the sort of things we're looking at. So for example, here we're doing a study where we're looking at how mothers interact with infants, looking at the bases of the sort of nuances and subtleties which happen in basic communication and learning. Now, you know, the future doesn't have to be a robot apocalypse. If you think about pretty much the most powerful force in human history is cooperation. And where we're going into the future, we're going to be cooperating with machines. So how do we make that easy? And then you start thinking about the creative possibilities that these things open up. And it's enormous. So there's incredibly amazing things that we can do. Now, when we start thinking about, okay, putting a face on artificial intelligence, you think about, well, how much does a face actually contribute to meaning? So we'll take a picture here from a profound motion picture, and I'm going to make a very small change to one of the faces, and I want you to pay attention and see if you can notice. I won't tell you which face it is. So what we're doing here is it's basically changing, you know, essentially the identity, but also the expression. It's the whole relationship with that scene. But as humans, we basically see so much context in interpersonal relationships. So there's this stuff, you know, this is missing from current human-computer interaction, the ability to put identity on things and to have all that expression. So in order to sort of develop this, I started a lab at the university about 5 years ago, and that was basically taking brain models and face models and putting those together to essentially create these interactive systems. A year ago, we spun it out into a company called Soul Machines, and basically what Soul Machines is doing is basically becoming the central nervous system for the future of human computing. It's like, how do we interconnect all these things and give it a natural way that we can interact? That's a digital baby, by the way. So, now, one of the things that we're looking at is we look at the things from a biological point of view and also a technical point of view. So on the biological point of view, we've got a project which we're developing called Baby X, which is a virtual infant that you can interact with and it can learn. And that's really looking at autonomy and all the driving forces of what it means to be human. You know, what motivates us. And so it's really it's more of a research project. And then on the technology side, we're going, okay, how do we apply that to commercial situations where we basically create, you know, adult models that can kind of serve as digital employees. And so there's a difference there between essentially autonomy and directability. And so if it's you can imagine a virtual reality or games type environment where you want characters to just think for themselves and do their own things, that's autonomous models. If you want like a customer service agent, then you might want to direct that because you want predictability. So we do everything along those spectrums. The way that we approach putting this stuff together is holistic. We look at, like, what are the different neural systems involved? So we don't just look at little pieces of AI like pattern recognition. We look at how do we interconnect these, because this is what happens in our bodies. We're able to interconnect seamlessly, you know, visual system, hearing system, emotional system, so forth. How does all this stuff come together and get globally regulated? And we give it even a virtual physiology to give it an aboutness. And we look at, and instead of having the limitations of robotics, we can do it all in computer graphics. So we're really looking at models of human behaviour from sort of low-level details to social interaction. So to give an overview of the system that we build is that you think about the way that we interact with the world. You know, we've got 5 different senses and we basically do multimodal association. We create behaviour out of that and we interact with the world. Now, with the Internet of Things coming and so forth, you can have thousands of senses. So how do you sort of put all this information together and make meaning out of it? And so what a nervous system does in an animal or in people too, it's really about the reduction of complexity. It's like, how do you reduce the sort of almost infinite dimensions of things going on out there and create a behaviour from it? And that's one of the things that our emotional system does really well. So we want to account for all these factors and we want to be able to express that back to the user and make an interactive loop. So to do that, we basically create artificial nervous systems which interconnect these things. And we had to build a special language in order to create these artificial nervous systems. So this is called brain language, and what it does is it interconnects all kinds of different types of neural networks and cameras and sensors and so forth, and into the animated models as well. So we essentially create virtual connectomes, which is like the wiring diagram of a virtual brain. So here's an example of one that I'll show running later. And we try to base it as much as possible on biological knowledge. So for example, here's a theoretical neuroscience circuit of a brainstem circuit involved in breathing. And then when we put it in the system, we basically create a neural network model which is generating breathing. So it's got virtual carbon dioxide. You can change that and it'll change the breathing rate. And you're wondering, why do we go to this sort of effort? It's because when we speak, we breathe out when we're speaking. Emotion affects the rate of speaking. All these things matter because it's all interconnected. So what you'll see with the technology I'm going to show you is it's all about how is everything all interconnected? You know, how do we make all these things which actually holistically affect things? So the key area of focus that we really do is the face, because the face is our primary means of communication and expression. It gives us our identity, expresses our intent, and it shows our internal state, but it's been untapped in terms of human-computer interaction. This is a biomechanical model of the face. So it's a physics-based model of the face. The blood vessels don't do anything, but everything else is part of a mathematical simulation. And what we can do once we've built this up is we can activate the individual muscles. And then once we activate the muscles, we can start creating expressions with them. And then we can activate all kinds of different sequences of muscles with essentially the simulation, so you can create all kinds of different things. And what we're really doing is creating essentially a musical instrument that you can do all kinds of different effects on. And because the face is really mirroring the brain, it's like what's going on your face is representing what's going on inside your brain and the body, really. And so we look at, okay, how does the brain control the face? And you've got two different areas in which the brain controls the face. You've got your emotional systems, which aren't learnt. They're just so when you're born, nobody teaches you to cry, you just cry. But when we learn social behaviour and speech, that's driven cognitively. So there's two separate systems, and they combine to give quite complex facial expressions, which we use for different purposes. And so with these models, the digital human models that we build, they have to be about something. They have to have a motivation to do something. So we use neurobehavioral models to drive these. So we look at physiologically based models of emotion and motivation, and we look at things like attention. So attention is really critical because attention essentially defines your conscious experience of your life, of your world. And this is how we basically deal with complexity, is we concentrate on something. We shut out everything else. So how we deal with some of the problems to do with learning of complexity is we basically focus. We focus on things, and we try to do that in the computer models as well. Then we look at social interaction. You know, how do we learn through these social interactions? And so we take these theoretical neuroscience models of different parts of the brain circuits and how they drive things. These are toy models. They're not super complex. They're simplifications, but they're sort of what the theorists believe, you know, how the system works. And we look at things like the emotional system. So we've got things like virtual cortisol and things like that. So we have a stress system which gets set off. And then we look at just how do we just learn? Like, what fantastic thing about people is we just learn in any environment. So this is a very simple type of neural network, but we've got similar types of networks across our brain because we make maps of the world. So there's some random colors there. I'm just going to hit go, and it's essentially going to self-organize. Now, this happens constantly in your brain. You're basically self-organizing all kinds of pieces of information. So that could be color, but it could also be sound, and it could be concepts. And the fantastic thing about this is it basically allows you to infer as well. So if you imagine your brain as a lot of hierarchical maps in a way, and we're constantly learning, if you plug these things into themselves, you basically get things which can learn through time. So here it's a simple network exposed to a bunch of sequence of digits, and it starts imagining what's coming next. So this is how something happens, but we can kind of try to predict what the future is and then compare reality with what we're trying to predict. You know, this is one of the sort of theoretical ways which people think we go through life. And so, but this essentially enables the computer to, you know, have stories, if you like. And so putting all this together, basically we built it's a G-rated talk, don't worry, and but basically, you know, we embody this in a model. And so this is the Baby X project, and what I'm going to show you is about a 2-year-old sort of simulation. I'll show you some teasers of some of the new stuff that we're working on at the moment, but pretty much here's a real baby doing baby stuff. And now we take the real baby and this is a real baby having solid food for the very first time in its life, like fundamentally new experience. That whoa moment is like, those are the moments that we live for, these profound moments. And what happens if a computer that you're interacting with does that when it learns something new? We start getting connected with what's going on inside that machine. And one of the, I think, the fears that people have with artificial intelligence is it's a black box. You've got no idea what's going on. You know, if that thing's going to decide your mortgage or something like that, you really want to know what's going on. So essentially with people, we get a cue to some of this information. So I think that the more that we open things up and make it more transparent with what are the decision processes happening, it matters. So anyway, one of the things is that faces are really good for revealing all kinds of stuff. So anyway, we make a biomechanical model of the baby as you do, and we activate its muscles, because you can't get real babies to do what you want. And then we basically put the different types of brain models in. And I'll just see if I can see, and I'm just going to fire up. So this is loading up an older version of Baby X, and so at the moment it's basically connecting its brain together. It's like wiring its brain, and then it's going to start up hopefully. So and there she is. Okay. So she can see and hear me. So as I walk around, she's watching what I'm doing. I can make a loud noise. She get a fright. Just sort of move the light around, so we can zoom up in her. So, and we can kind of see what she can see too. Okay. Hey, sweetheart. Hey. So she's responding to me. Basically, you can see her different simulated neurochemical levels going up on the left. So anyway, so I'm going to be a bit mean, and I'm going to actually hide from her. So I'm basically, she craves social connection. So if you see the graphs on the left, her virtual stress system is about to get set off. Okay, I'll put her out of misery. Hey, sweetheart, it's okay. Don't cry. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Right. So what I'm doing there is I'm using my expressions, my voice to calm her, but this is using affect. So you're sort of kind of creating a emotional connection between you and the machine, which is a bizarre thing. But you know, this is a type of thing that you can do. Now, as you'll see in the bottom left window, I'll put the mouse down here. You can see where she's looking. So if I move over here and wave my hand, you know, she's paying attention to my hand. So she pays attention to all kinds of different things. So we can also make her learn. She's learning in real time as well. So if I give her, like, I'll see if this is loud enough, but there's a bell. It doesn't mean anything. Now, hey, sweetheart, you like the bell? Yeah, you like it. The bell's awesome. Okay, and now I'm just doing the bell by itself. There. This is an extreme example of like Pavlovian, as similar to Pavlovian sort of conditioning. It's not exactly that, but it's a type of conditioning where there's a meaningless stimuli, and I've associated an emotion with the stimuli. Now, this is one of the things, it's okay, hey, it's okay. Right, yeah, she likes attention. But anyway, all of her expressions are generated by biologically based neural networks. So, and they're all meaning something. It's actually driven by different things. So now I'm going to do the shocking thing. I'm about to remove her face, so look out. And this is what's driving her. So it's basically, essentially an interactive brain model. So you see as I walk around, it's watching me. And so we're simulating the circuits driving this. And so you'll see, for example, here's in the brainstem, you've got the oculomotor nuclei, which are responding and making the eyes look around. Now, what the eyes are looking at actually changes the input to the system. So we can spin this brain around. Let's look around here. Let's remove the cortex, and then we've got the brainstem here. Now, if I move around, you'll see there's a neural field there, and that's basically how the brain is mapping the world to your body. And as I move around, that field is the thing which is getting the most salience or attention, is then driving the oculomotor system, which is then moving the eyeballs to look at what it's paying attention to or listening to. There's layers of this. And because we're using these different types of theoretical models, we can affect different parameters. Like, for example, I can increase the amount of dopamine in the system, so I'm going to bump it up there. And I've created essentially now too much feedback, and this is kind of what happens in Huntington's disease. And if we kill off those cells, and you'll see we get too little feedback, and this is like Parkinson's disease. So these are theoretical models. Again, there's still lots which is not known, but anyway, we're able to use some of the latest thinking that's out there. Now, if we now zoom out of the baby here, and I'm going to, if you watch her pupils, I'm going to bump up her dopamine. This is kind of like giving baby drugs. But so now her learning rate's also increased there. So we'll put her back down to normal levels. But basically that affects the plasticity of her network. So the way that she learns, the way that she behaves is kind of driven by that. Now, the other thing is we've got her little first words book here. So now, okay, I'm from New Zealand, so we're going to show her this. Hey, sweetheart, what's this? What's this?
Sheep.
Good girl. Okay. Hey, what's this? Over here. What's that? What's that?
Clock.
Good girl. So I'm getting her attention. Hey, what's that over here? See where I'm waving? Looking at movement, for example. What's this?
Look.
Good girl. Okay, so that gives you an example of sort of, now that's a deep learning type network doing image recognition, but that's got a Hebbian association with the words for that, and so that's how she links those together. So you can kind of see how you can connect what's going on in the computer to things in the real world and do all kinds of things. So now I'll just go back to the presentation, and so this is something which is happening, takes a bit longer to train, but this is now, I'm copying the baby. This is what parents do to their kids. When the baby's doing something, they go, ooh, and when the baby does that. And the baby's starting to learn to associate what she does with what I do. Now, a lot of connections in the brain are bidirectional, so she's able to learn the reverse situation. So now I do something, she copies me. So this is kind of how some of these learning processes work, and her smile is basically coming from her emotional system driving that. Now, this is even potentially a basis for virtual empathy because she's interconnected with your emotional state, but now I'll talk about that later. But now what we've done is we've connected her brain to the bat in the video game Pong, and we give her a little dopamine hit every time she hits that bat. So basically, she's essentially, this is like, here we go, over time, yeah, and then she'll basically learn to control the bat. And this is kind of called reinforcement learning. So there you go there. And then if we step forward, I took it to a school, and here's some kids interacting with it. So this is like the point of view of the computer. The kids are blue because there was a bug, but I didn't want to fix it because I liked it. But it's kind of an interesting thing. It gives you a totally different point of view. And then I'll show you something else because I'll just fire this up down here. So we don't just do babies, we also do adults, and these are for things like virtual agents or customer assistants and things like that, and I'll talk through some of the use cases for that. So this will take a while to load. It's loading up some different faces, but it's essentially the same system, but this is now something that you plug into other technology, so you can plug it into like IBM Watson or Microsoft Cortana or any other type of system. So essentially all the technology that I'm showing you in this talk is commercially ready now, by the way. So we have a company, and this is what we're doing. So it's basically this isn't the future. We can do it today. So this stuff's running live on my laptop, but it can also run in the cloud. So essentially, I'll talk about some different projects. So soon we should see another face. So here we've got a face. This is kind of running live here. Just do that. Move this over a bit. There we go. And so now with this face here, what I can do is it's like we can, again, move the light on it. This is all just running live. She's watching me doing different things. Now, this is actually the face of a virtual agent called Nadia that we've been building for the National Disability Insurance Scheme here. And so this we can, zoom right in on her, really keep going in and so, and then now she's able to, we could get full control over her face, so we can do different things, move her brow. Now if I take, move, literally I'm going to move two numbers. I do that one and like that. So with two numbers, we've now made essentially a caring sort of empathetic expression. And it's like, this is the equivalent of essentially playing sad music. You can just take a couple of notes, and the way that you play them creates that emotional impact. And you can do the same thing with a face. So you can think about the face as the ultimate musical instrument. Now, as she's doing all this sort of stuff, so let's reset her back to normal. So we've got full control. I mean, we can make her do, all kinds of stuff. And so even like little subtle things like, this one, just a slight widening of the eye. So we've got full control. And it's like, I'm just going to run a piece of canned dialogue now, and then I'm going to start messing with it.
Hello.
So as she's doing that,
How can I help you?
You can make it frown, but it changes essentially the meaning of what's going on.
Goodbye.
Especially if I do this one.
Excuse me. I don't understand.
So it's
I
like
understand.
it's all the same stuff, but you basically,
No.
change all.
No. No.
So that's a lot of fun. So now we can also make her, because it's essentially a virtual assistant, you can make her do different languages. So let's do
Willkommen in Deutschland.
Or
欢迎到中国
Добро пожаловать в Россию.
especially for here.
Welcome to Australia.
So you can have lots of fun. Now it doesn't have to be this face. We can do other types of faces. So here's an older face. So now in this face here, same thing. We move around the light. We build every individual eyelash and so forth. And the point here is that in film and things like that, you have extreme close-ups for psychological shots, but you can do the same type of things with these avatars just running live in real time. Now, as she's looking around here, we can kind of give her some accessories and basically we'll change her age, race, and gender in one go, and bam. And then, so let's zoom out of here. So we can, same sort of thing here. Now, and we really carefully construct these models. So you see, like if you take a look at his eyebrows and things like that as he frowns, it's like everything, to keep it real, is like everything to do with how the skin's folding and so forth under the eyes. So all these different sorts of expressions we can kind of pull together. Now these models also have, I'll just show you here, we can control their direction of where they're looking. Like for example, I give it attention over there. It's looking there, back to me, back to there, and so forth. And this is how it can kind of communicate things non-verbally with you, as otherwise, and it can point as well. We have full body avatars too. So these, it's also got a, its own emotional system. So if we do things like, make it drive down its serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, we've kind of given it severe depression. But we can fix that. Luckily, we've got a button to fix that. And then, it's coming back. Okay, so pretty much you can do this type of stuff. Now let's stop there and then go back to here. And what's next? Oh yeah, so this is Baby X4 that we're currently building. It's actually Baby X5 now, but basically this is a full-bodied model, and we're doing this experimentally. It's really the baby's got a brain model which is driving its limbs and things. It can move its toes, and pretty much this will be the most sophisticated computer character ever built, I think. And so with the Baby X project, we've been rebuilding all kinds of stuff. It's got essentially a new digital brain, which is here's part of its brain doing different dynamics, and we're building it's got essentially a cognitive architecture. So these are based on neuroscience models or cognitive science models, and you basically each functional aspect maps onto part of the brain. Again, these are super simplified toy models, but nevertheless it's like looking at the connectivity between all these things. And there's a sort of so we're building, a lot of detail into these. Now this is we're also building it so that, Baby X can basically interact with you on touchscreens and things like that. And we're looking at looking at models of cooperation and co-creation, so that you can draw pictures and Baby X can draw pictures. And, really exploring those sort of, things which I think will be really important in the future. Now, on an applied side of things, we've been doing a project we started last year with the National Disability Insurance Scheme, and this is to help basically Australians with disability, and it runs in the cloud, and it's been co-designed as well. So I'll let Nadia do this. Is called Nadia. I'll let her talk about what she does.
Hello, my name is Nadia. I'm a virtual assistant and I'm here to help you. I'm not human, but I can make it easier for you and other NDIS users to get the information and help you need. You have more important things to do than wait on the phone, so I'm here to help whenever you need. I can hear you, and if you have a webcam, I can see you too. You can talk to me or type questions in the chat box, and I will talk back and write my answers. This is so I can help people with all different kinds of disabilities. NDIS users like you have tested me along the way and helped make me what I am today. So far, they really like me, which is great. I won't be able to answer every question yet because I'm still learning what answers people are looking for. Helping people access the NDIS is very important, so thank you for helping train me by asking me questions so I can get better at my job. I appreciate your patience. I'm a good listener, and I really want to understand you better. So please tell me what you want to know about the NDIS and how I can improve. I like it when you're honest. Go on, ask me something. If you don't like talking to me, you can ask to speak to a real person, but I hope you'll come back and talk to me again soon. Why don't you ask me what the NDIS is?
So the Nadia project basically is to create an assistant that can remember the interaction with you. So it basically creates a personalised interaction so that you've probably all had experiences where you get put on phone tag, waiting for something to happen, then you have to start from the beginning talking about your case. So the goal here is basically you make something which is like a personalised assistant which is available 24 hours a day. And the other thing is that she mentioned there, if this is for dealing with all the menial questions, the things which basically get asked all the time, and so it doesn't waste like actual skilled operatives' time. And so when basically she can bring in a human into the loop anytime things get complicated, and it makes the best use of their time. So this shows you probably recognise the voice of Nadia, so this is a little bit of behind the scenes stuff, and it also talks about the co-design process, which is at the moment the Nadia project's actually a bit stalled in bureaucracy, but basically it's a government project, but anyway. So but essentially what's fantastic about this project is the end users have been part of the design process, and it's like the video kind of talks a bit about that.
Hello there, my name is Nadia.
In many ways, Nadia is a game changer.
Go on, ask me something.
I think it's got a really good chance of being something very exciting but also very important.
The more questions and interactions I have, the smarter I become.
Kate has been spending all of her spare time learning a new script. It might not be her next Academy Award, but it is certainly challenging. It is the voice of Nadia.
I'm a virtual assistant and I'm here to help you.
This is the bringing together of disability entrepreneurs, the best of the public service, the most brilliant scientists, Academy Award winners in a scientific and creative effort that is really about a higher purpose for Australia.
The DIRG is Digital Innovations Reference Group, and it's a meeting of minds between disabled people, innovators, the NDIA and people who work in the area of innovation and technology, all coming together to actually create something fantastic for the NDIS.
It truly is a group of people with a need driving innovation rather than somebody telling a group of people what they need to have their problems solved. And I think that that's just so exciting to be a part of.
People with a diverse range of disabilities have helped us out and come together to make sure that Nadia is the best she can be for a broader range of the community as we could hope for.
It's probably one of the most... Shut him up. Anyway, so... but basically, this is this fantastic project, and it's the thing is about how do you make technology more accessible. If you're paralysed from the neck down, how do you fill in a form? Just things like that. It's really so holistically, it's really looking at just making things easier to use, making them more accessible, and also not taking things for granted. I mean, in this project, you can't take the sense of sight basically for granted. It's all sorts. And hearing, so people are able to lip read the avatars. There's all kinds of things. One of the potential things that we were looking at doing is sign language, so the avatars will be able to sign. So, it's a fantastic thing. So, anyway, but in the meantime, we're pretty much building other avatars. So the other thing is that depending on pretty much where you're dealing with. What location. You have different demographics, so you might want to have, for example, if it's the Northern Territory, it could be an Indigenous Australian or whatever. So it really depends on and if it's kids, we can actually make characters instead. So I'll show you some examples of that next. But this is one of our new avatars. So and we keep bumping up the realism level. So this one's called Roman. So now another thing that we look at is like how do we respond empathetically to the user? Now what you're going to see now is basically the avatar or the digital human is not understanding my words, but she's understanding my affect. So you'll see what you're seeing is completely automated response.
Okay, can you hear me? Well, I'm going to tell you about my week. Actually, the last couple of days it's been very challenging for me. It's been very difficult. I've been really struggling with a lot of very sad things, and then the last day was actually quite irritating. As everything was just not going my way. It was really, really frustrating. I didn't know what to do. But I'm hoping that tomorrow is going to be a great day, and I'm really looking forward to it.
So now we can use these avatars in different things. So this is a demonstration which was done recently in New York City, and it's for essentially a financial services thing. So this is kind of going through credit card questions and things.
So many credit cards out there, so many offers, options. I don't really know what to do.
Oh, Shantanu, I completely understand. It can be a lot to figure out. Would you like some help?
Sure. I'm looking for a card with no annual fee, a low APR, and something where I can get the maximum amount of points.
Okay, so you're looking for a points card. I can definitely help.
Well, you get the point
Okay,
of that.
Strawberry
Now,
Kid,
this is another one where it's a non-human character. This is an
There you
entertainment.
are. Welcome to my party.
How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for asking.
Do you have a hobby?
Yes, I love to write poetry.
Who is your BFF?
Apple Blossom. She's such an adventurer.
Where do you hang out?
I hang out with the fruit and veg.
Oh, who is your favorite singer?
Definitely Barry Manilow.
Good choice. Do you have a favorite song?
Oh, that's easy. Strawberry Fields Forever. Do you have any sharpkins? Hold them up and show me. Hey, it's Cookie. She is Cookie and proud of it. Hey, it's Apple Blossom. She is such an adventurer.
Well done.
Am I supposed to eat that strawberry?
Give it a go.
This would be cannibalism.
No way.
All right, let's cheer you up a bit with some music. Do you want to dance along? Hey, there you go. Thanks for inviting me to your party. It's been fun hanging out with you. See you later.
So it's all the same system running in the background. Now we also did a proof of concept actually with a games character. So now what you're going to see next is a character out of one of the top-selling games, and we've taken that model and just done a mock-up. It's a live demo, but what we'll show you here is a mock-up of that.
Oh, what a day.
Mark? Is that you?
Wait, have you been sitting here this whole time?
Hell, there's nothing else to do in this little bubble you locked me in. There's no guns, no jungles, no planes to fall out of, trains to climb up, automobiles to surf. You know, from the game. What I'm trying to say is I am freaking bored here, man. Just help a brother out.
All right. What would you like to do?
We could chat, catch up, talk about sports, weather.
How about we play some games?
All right, we got GT Sport in the tray, and your rival James just beat your record lap on the Tokyo Speedway.
Ah, man. Don't worry, I'll beat him later. What else have you got?
Ooh, how about we jump back into Shadow of the Colossus?
Yeah, awesome.
All right, here we go.
So we're also doing sort of characters. This is going to be a really cute little baby owl, but it's going to be very realistic. And so one of the things I'm interested in is basically building teachable characters and characters that can teach. And so this is for, you know, educational things with kids, but also if you take that into, for adults, it's about training and simulation. So we're working on, we're starting to work on a project which is to do with creating virtual patients. So this is basically so doctors can essentially learn how to interact with people. And this is an augmented reality app, so it's really cool. So it's literally like you've got a virtual patient sitting in the chair there, and you go up and interact with them. And so really the technology is really a Lego system for putting all these components together. And you know, so what we're really trying to do is take a holistic approach to artificial intelligence and, you know, put in all the different types of human factors into there, make it more empathetic and more social and more human. And so, you know, we're really trying to transform the way that people interact with machines. And so, you know, it's possible that the way that we work with the computers will change for good. So, thank you, and I can take some questions, I think.
Okay, so we have some roving mics at the back of the room. Mark, I might start with a question just to get things warmed up. Tell us, obviously this is, you know, the edge of the possible stuff. And in the next 5 to 10 years, Mark, what do you see on the horizon? Is this something that might be combined with actual robots at some point? Where are you going with this?
I mean, really, by the way, everything I showed today is available today. Like, so it can be implemented today. So we're doing pilots with a number of different companies. In the future, yes, you could apply this technology to robotics as an operating system in the future, but robotics technology's got a long way to go before it can actually become, you know, just getting the mechanics right and that type of thing. So, but if you think about things like, you know, virtual reality, augmented reality, these different types of things, we're going to be creating a lot of virtual worlds. And those virtual worlds are going to need to be populated. And they're going to be populated by realistic looking people that you're interacting with. So your Skype calls or whatever will basically be in 3D and you'll be interacting with people. But also you're going to have them populated by autonomous characters. You might have, you know, owls flying around or different types of things. So everything that you see in movies at the moment as a special effect can become real in this virtual world. So it's kind of like the holodeck, if you like. So that's exactly what we can do, and a lot of that technology is possible today.
Good. Hi, welcome Bernard, CTO for IBM Corporation. Your question?
That's very cool stuff, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the challenges, as you undoubtedly know, is the training aspect of this, because there have been some, without being merciful and not mentioning the company that did it, I think you know what happened. Somebody turned one of these things loose to the general public and said, let's see what happened. It ended up being a sex-loving Nazi. I mean, it didn't work well, and in about 24 hours they killed it. I'm curious, this is one of the huge challenges, is the training and the creating the corpus of knowledge and the things that we take for granted as humans in terms of our intellect, in terms of the limits that we place around ourselves. How do you see that evolving in terms of the training? Because right now it's very heavy-handed on the human side, to be honest, in the slow process.
I totally agree, and that's a great question. So, for example, with the Nadia project, as you probably you be fully aware of, that's essentially a human-created corpus. So, because every answer that Nadia gives has been carefully curated, because it really matters what she says. So, there's nothing taking the chance, and basically all of her responses have been gone through by psychologists and made sure that that's actually appropriate for people with disability. And so that's what I talk about, the directability. In other words, there's a very controlled way in which information is given out. And so that's when you know exactly what you want it to say. Now for entertainment, that's when we start getting into more autonomy, and then it's kind of like, it can go in all kinds of different directions. Now, one of the interesting things, like one of the things we're going to do with Baby X is it'll be in a museum, and it's like basically kids will come up and interact with it, and you know what they're going to do. Basically, they're going to tease it and try to make it cry. So it will happen, and it's like, so the thing is though, is that we can make Baby X basically only respond to positive behaviour. So I can make her avert her attention. So in other words, somebody comes up and tries to be mean to it, she'll just look away and not give them attention. And so you can actually enact sort of positive behavioural change by building in certain factors. And I think that that's probably the way to address that question. Is that, I mean, it's probably, with the with the company that did but basically with that project, it is something that they probably didn't anticipate that, but of course, basically, humans, it's going to be the lowest common denominator. We know it's going to, basically, people are going to do what they can with it for fun, and then it'll go viral. And so, there's, I think, but if you look at what are the principles? Like always positive behaviour. Like, so with the virtual assistants, it's kind of like, if I go up to a concierge or an assistant at the airport or something like that, even if I'm in a bad mood because I've just missed my flight, we expect basically good behaviour coming back. If they get angry with you, that's like the worst customer experience. But really, we expect they'll be apologetic and sort of concerned. And those are the types of things which I think you basically always try to raise the level of conversation. So that would be my response to that.
We have a question down the back here.
Hi, I'm Pia Zuleta from AMP. That TV show Westworld, and in the theme of the future is here, how far away are we from actually having that?
So Westworld, robotically, we're a long way off because, basically the technology to create the robots to that level of realism, that's a long, long way off. In a virtual world, I would say, we're probably 5 to 10 years away from being able to create that type of level of interaction. And, it's an interesting thing because Westworld is essentially written by, I think it's one of the Nolans, and it's, it's a very sort of narrative concept on what intelligence is and consciousness is, that everything's kind of story-driven. And so you can start, there's already chatbots and things out there now. There's a thing called the Luca, I think, is an example where somebody made a chatbot from her dead friend. And it was a tribute to the friend, and they basically put in a lot of the writing of the friend, and it was able to match. So you'd ask it a question, and it would respond, and it was trained on the language that the friend used. So it's kind of a little bit like conversing with that person. Now, if you can imagine, if you combine that technology with this technology, you've essentially got digital ghosts, which is a fascinating thing. Now, and you think about that through a bit more, and it's like, okay, what used to be the first thing that people would save in a fire? Well, before computers would basically save photographs, family photographs. And now it'll be family videos. And in the future, it may well be family simulations, who knows? Because it's all about what do you want to basically preserve memories of things that you care about. And so I think that the things which you really care about are going to be the things which kind of matter there. And what is that? Would you like to have a conversation, with your father or something like that? Those types of things may be possible. And so it's an interesting area. We may draw the line. We go, no, I just want to watch videos. I don't want to have interactive things. So it's really a personal choice. So, but anyway, it's a, this can go anywhere.
Question down here.
Wonderful presentation. Thank you, Mark. Russell Mason from Deloitte. How do you get around the challenge that people like to deal with people? Even with the imperfections we all have, this is still a computer at the end of the day, albeit with a human face. Is that a generational thing? Am I a dinosaur as a baby boomer and the millennials all accept this very readily? Or is that a challenge you're still coming to grips with?
So I think the thing is, I think always dealing with a person is always the number one choice. Essentially, but mainly the economic reality of a lot of businesses is they don't have enough people to deal with all the customers. How do you run a call center agent? You've got millions of people which are coming in. So then it's going, okay, well, if I've got a limited number of people, how do I best use their time? And if it's a bunch of frequently asked questions and things like that, then if I'm now the customer and I go online, sorry, a person is not able to assist you for an hour or something like that. But in the meantime, would you like to talk to a virtual assistant? And that would be the way that you do that, because it's never going to be as good as a person, but it may basically be better than nothing. So it's kind of like that thing. And then you get to cases where if you start adding the entertainment aspect of it, it's like it might be really fun to talk to a talking owl. You know, it's like, so that actually might be more fun than talking to a person. You know, who knows? And then the other thing is they could be celebrity faces. You could design your own faces. I want to interact with my favourite movie star or something like that. So that's where the creative possibilities start getting, you know, quite a lot. Now, interestingly too, there was a study done on US veterans on a post-traumatic stress disorder system, and they actually preferred to deal with a virtual agent rather than a real person, because basically opening up on that personal level to a real person, you know, is actually more stressful than essentially talking to a computer. And so it's an interesting thing. I think there's a, you know, a lot of places it can go, but, you know, I always think it's horses for courses. It's like, you know, use people for what people are good at, and if it's something repetitive and mundane or something where a computer might actually be able to guide you through there faster, you know, so you could have an avatar like this or a digital human like this, could be connected to all kinds of analysis software and all kinds of things. So it could compute things for you, it could reference things. Also, it knows it's been dealing with you, so it's got your personal information, so you don't lose track of the conversation. So in one of the sessions before, we were talking about the concept of it's a personal relationship manager that is always personal. So everybody's interaction with a company can be personal, you know, because it can remember where you're at. It doesn't pass you around, you know, you go off to India and come back or whatever. You know, there's all kinds of stuff.
Time for one last brief question over here. Christian.
Hi, Chris Erickson from Accenture. Great presentation, Mark. Fantastic. Apart from the fact that you didn't bring Kate Blanchett with you, but anyway. Well, I'm just curious, perhaps, you've obviously been in this journey for a while. Could you maybe share with us any key learnings? You know, what would you have done differently?
At the moment, I guess, you know, having a great team is you know, one of the most important things. That's all the, you know, with this type of technology too, is that, you know, with my staff, I've basically really given people freedom to experiment on different things. So there's like a general guidance, okay, we're going in this direction, but, you know, the researchers and things can really play around. So there's a lot of, you know, and then we go, okay, that looks great, okay, let's put that in. We've also, from the beginning of the project, we made it modular. So essentially, what we used to call the brain language technology brain Lego, but it's trademarked, so we couldn't really use that. But basically, we created a Lego system, which means that every time we want to try something new, we don't have to rebuild stuff. And so the entire architecture of the system is like a big Lego system. And so that's been, I think that's been, you know, really helpful. And also the other thing is that, you know, if this type of stuff, often you basically have to build it, because you can talk about it, but nobody will believe it until you actually show it. So that's where you have to have enough sort of, I guess, persistence or whatever to essentially create something that you can demonstrate, and then people believe it.
All right, that's all we have time for this afternoon. Really thought-provoking stuff at the edge of what's possible. Mark, thank you so much for your time and your contribution today. Clearly you've inspired a lot of us to think differently about the future of interfaces with strawberries that talk and owls that talk, and then agents that also help people with disabilities, and the list goes on. Thank you very much for your presentation today, and please join me in welcoming Mark.